All right. Well, looks like some folks are still joining. And thanks, Troy, for bringing up our slides. I think we are probably about ready to get started. If that works for everyone. Troy, are you all set? I can kick things off and then turn it over to you. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome everyone to session 2 of the past, present, and future of Centers for Independent Living, or CILs, facilitating pre-employment transition services, or Pre-ETS, facilitated by ABLE, South Carolina, and hosted by the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or DTAC. So our topic today is mapping CIL services for in-school youth, and our session will run from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and we're really glad that you're back this week to join us for session 2 here, and we can go to the next slide. All right. So during today's event and in our next session as well on July 10th, we have CART closed captioning services available. You can also access large font captions on this link that's shown on the slides, and I'll drop that on in the chat in a moment. And you can actually also adjust your caption settings in Zoom to what you need, including the font size, by going to the caption button at the bottom of your Zoom and clicking on the caption settings option. During our first session, we had American Sign Language Interpretation, or ASL, but after session 1, ASL is available by request. So if you do need ASL to participate in our next session on July 10th, please just reach out and let us know 3 business days in advance by emailing the DTAC team at aodemploymentta@gmail.com. And go ahead, thanks, Troy. This is just a reminder of our ground rules. We just really hope that these are interactive sessions where you have the opportunity to connect with each other as peers, as well as with our subject matter expert from ABLE, South Carolina, Troy Hall, who's facilitating today, and offers just a wealth of knowledge on this topic. So feel free to participate how works best for you, whether that's chat, verbal, video, and then just come prepared to discuss your successes and challenges as we work through the session today. And we can go to the next slide. And I will turn it over to Troy here to go over our agenda and reintroduce himself and get us started. Troy?
All right. Thanks so much, Megan. Hi, everybody. Great to virtually see y'all again. It looks like you might even have a couple of new faces, which is wonderful. So after a quick welcome and an intro, we are going to be talking about mapping Center for Independent Living Services for serving youth in school. So this is going to be starting off with a little review of what we talked about last time, what are pre-ETS, what's the rationale for CILs kind of being a key part of those services. We're then going to go over the wonderful feedback that y'all provided about the services that you're already providing. I will go ahead and prime y'all now. I am going to ask for some audience participation in that section. So some of you guys have some really, really cool programs that I am hoping to get more information on and see how we might be able to implement down here in South Carolina. So be prepared. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how ABLE South Carolina has specifically provided pre-ETS over the years, the successes, the failures that we've run into, and just kind of talk about what we've done in a way that I hope is going to be really useful. And then we'll close it off and I'll throw it back to Megan for next steps. But I'll kind of reiterate, this one's going to be a little bit more of a fireside chat, so I'm really hoping to hear from some of the amazing work that you're already doing. All right, we are in session 2. We've only got one more session after this. That's going to be lesson learned and common questions on facilitating pre-ETS. As a reminder, hi everybody. My name is Troy Hall. I'm the Director of Youth Transition Programs over at ABLE South Carolina. I'm a white male with glasses and brown hair. Today I'm wearing a black polo. Um, in the picture, I'm wearing sort of a white short sleeve button down. I always think when I'm doing like series of webinars, I think about it the morning of, like, am I accidentally going to wear the exact same clothes that I wore from the last session? And I can never remember what I wore. So, um, okay, we are going to go ahead and jump in with a little bit of a review. So if y'all have been doing this for 100 years, or if you have a wonderful memory, sorry, this is going to be a little bit more of a recap, but if you're like me and you forget things often and easily, this is just a refresher of some of the things that we talked about last time. So just as a reminder, Pre-ETS, those pre-employment transition services, those are mandated under WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. That was enacted way back in 2014. That was, of course, a revision of already existing acts. And of the many things it dictates, it does say that vocational rehabilitation agencies have to reserve 15% of their funding to provide these pre-ETS services to eligible and potentially eligible students with disabilities. And you will hear me refer to that a lot later on. So, pre-ETS are designed to find appropriate supports and provide students with disabilities the skills they need to transition from employment, or excuse me, from school into employment or into further education. Those 5 big categories are job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences or opportunities, counseling on post-secondary education, workplace readiness training, and then my personal favorite, self-advocacy. So we also talked about sort of the key partners that play a role in effectively providing pre-ETS to youth with disabilities. So VR agencies are a big role. I call them VR. I know that among the states, there are lots of different acronyms and names, but these vocational rehabilitation agencies, they are the expert in rehab services, vocational guidance, job counseling, job placement. Those are the skills in this pre-ETS formula that we really rely on VR to bring to the table. Then there's the Department of Education. Those are our school partners. Those are our LEAs. They're sort of all in a big umbrella there. I'll usually just refer to that as our education partners, or specifically Department of Education. But they're there to provide that guidance to school districts. They're the expert in special education or SPED services. They're also the agency that should be aware of where these gaps are, so where VR and CILs can plug themselves. And then, of course, Centers for Independent Living. So CILs, they're going to be the experts in disability representation, disability rights, self-advocacy, and peer models. And of course, independent living, which is an essential part of pre-ETS. As a reminder, CIL members have this unique strength because they are members of the disability community. A lot of these staff members are youth, or they were youth not too long ago, youth with disabilities who have faced similar challenges, they have similar life experience, they can offer sort of a genuine empathy and practical advice. And then, as myself and my boss always likes to remind us, because we work at a Center for Independent Living, we are not service providers in that traditional sense. Our main job is to be advocates. So we're there to create system change. So we also talked about what the actual data shows. I will start this with the caveat that we know that disability-led services are drastically understudied because there simply are less services to study. There aren't a whole lot of disability-led services. More and more research, however, is showing that the disability-led approach is the most successful when non-disabled people without disabilities, I'm sorry, said that the wrong way. The research is showing that when people with disabilities are able to teach other people with disabilities, that's going to be the most successful outcome, right? And then the data also shows that following the value-based principles that guide Centers for Independent Living and guides their professionals, when they support youth with disabilities, that's going to lead to the most successful instances of transition. On the screen is a couple of points of research. Um, I'm not going to read all of these, but the slides are going to go out. So if you are one of those people that really loves to dive into data heavy journals or articles, feel free to click on these. Um, are there any data people in the audience? I think I kind of asked that last time, but we have some people who really like to dive into the data. Anybody? And a couple of thumbs up, something in the chat. I know. It's the afternoon, it's after lunch, probably a little tired. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. The other thing we talked about last time was collaboration, right? So if we look at these three key partners, we look at Centers for Independent Living, we look at Department of Education, educational partners, and then we look at Centers for Independent Living. How can we all collaborate in the most effective ways to provide successful transition for youth with disabilities into adulthood, into further education, into employment, and hopefully into some form of self-directed independent living if that's one of their goals. So when we think about the collaboration with schools, schools have their primary job of providing the education, the educational support, um, and a key educational part of those transition services. So as a Center for Independent Living, we can make sure that we're building up those self-advocacy skills within youth. We try and push a lot of student-led IEP programs or IEP programs where students are going to be at the center. I know a lot of y'all have probably worked with plenty of schools, been to plenty of meetings where students are not present in their IEP meeting. Sometimes we kind of have to drag them to the table. Sometimes we have to get our teacher friends to sit down and acknowledge that the student needs to be there. But we know that that's a key service. We can also help provide professional development to teachers because we bring that specific disability knowledge that's not always taught in education programs. It's not always something that you get even with years of teaching. So we can purposefully bring that unique knowledge. We can be partner advocates for students and families to make sure they are receiving transition services in that least restrictive environment. And then we can work with students and schools to help them understand those IDEA requirements because goodness knows there are a lot of laws that kind of guide what students are entitled to, what young people are entitled to. So it's nice to have a content expert be able to guide you through those. When we think about Centers for Independent Living collaborating with VR, VR is going to be those state federally funded organizations that provide those rehabilitation services to anyone with a disability looking for employment, but especially transition age youth. So we can likewise teach consumers, just like we're teaching students, those self-advocacy skills to make sure they're getting the services they need. We can use the firsthand knowledge that we have as individuals with disabilities to help them navigate the minutiae of things like assistive technology or specific accommodations that are needed depending on the job and the disability. And then we can provide consumers with those independent living skills so that they can achieve their specific goals and really fill in the gap that exists when we're thinking about this whole picture of education and independence and life skills, right? Centers for Independent Living are sort of this other slice that's going to fill in that gap because, as y'all know, if you have a great job, but you're still struggling with those basic independent life skills, that job is going to suffer because of that. And then we can also advocate for change. We can hold our partners accountable, just like we expect them to hold us accountable to make sure that we stay in accordance with our mission. Okay. How we feeling? That was kind of a super fast recap. Did I miss anything? Let me get some thumbs up, some smiley faces. Make sure y'all are here, awake. Wonderful. Awesome. So, this is where I'm going to go over the wonderful results that y'all shared with me last time through the survey that you completed. Because, as Megan sort of mentioned, while I am the person who can talk to a brick wall all day and say it was a wonderful conversation, I really am hoping to hear from y'all as well, because there's a lot of brain power in the room. There's a lot of experience in this virtual room. I'm going to have my time to talk about the programs that we have and the way they've failed and grown. I do want y'all to be able to use this environment to talk about the programs that you currently have with each other. So let's look at some centers for independent living that are here in the room with us and some of the services that they are currently providing. So I saw a couple of things. I'm just going to throw out a couple of the key services I saw. I'm not going to be able to mention every single one. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of the trends that I saw, but I'd really love to save some space for y'all just to chime in, throw some things in the chat, and just brag on yourselves, right? Because you work hard. So I want to hear about the great programs you're doing. Some of the work-based learning experiences that I saw y'all were doing, there's a summer youth employment program from LEAP. There's the P2P youth work experience. I'm not as familiar with that. There were some in-school work-based modules, which is great. That kind of module style work is something that we're striving towards. So I'd really love to hear about that. For job exploration and sort of career readiness side of Pre-ETS, there was some direct job exploration counseling. There are some, there are some career workshops and some interactive modules that I saw. For the work readiness training, there are quite a few CILs that have programs dedicated to soft skills, focusing on time management, focusing on teamwork, professionalism. Some of y'all were doing counseling on post-secondary education. Actually, a lot of y'all were doing that, which is great. I'd love to hear if you're able to partner with VR on some of that. And then lots and lots of unique ways that you're implementing self-advocacy, right? Self-advocacy sort of workshops, whether that's role playing, whether that's peer discussion, whether that's mock IEPs, which I think is a beautiful thing. And then some empowerment, some rights education. So a couple of the trends that I saw were, there's a lot of y'all who are able to find school-based delivery, right? I'm also going to give you all a chance to talk in breakout rooms separately. So I know there's a lot of CILs who are hoping to get to that point, and then there are a lot of CILs who are at that point. So in addition to hearing from my experience, I do want to create a space where y'all are able to share that experience with each other. A lot of work experience programs. Y'all had a very interesting split between sort of packaged curricula that you were able to sort of buy, go through, validate, and then a lot of y'all are creating custom curricula. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. And then this is a really great mix because we've got some of y'all who feel pretty established and you're looking for the next steps. And then there's some of y'all that are sort of in the infancy of Pre-ETS programming and sometimes the infancy of some youth programming, and you want to figure out how can we build these programs up quickly and effectively. Just going to highlight some unique programs, and then we're all going to sit in an awkward silence for a minute. Prepare yourselves. Some of the unique programs that I'd love to hear more about. There was the Relax sort of anger management program. that focuses on sort of empathy. Tell you a little bit about that. Some of you are able to create virtual job shadowing, specific modules based on budgeting, able to get some healthy relationships classes or groups going. Again, these mock IEP meetings, I think that's a wonderful tool. Some specific disability disclosure training that involves some role playing. Um, Education rights peer-led workshops. Some of you are tapping into some great guest speakers. And then Syl of the Keys was able to combine self-advocacy with benefits counseling, which I think is also really unique. So here's what I'd love. I've talked about some of the great programs that y'all have. And I've dedicated a chunk of time, and I don't want to wrap up too early. So is there anyone confident enough to come off mute or put some things in the chat to brag on themselves and talk about the really great programs that y'all have? Specifically some of the really cool, unique ones that I see on the screen, or any.
We did a healthy relationships class leading up to one of our other agencies' prom that they put on for adults with disabilities. And well, it was offered to all ages, but we really focused on the importance of boundaries and understanding kind of what they all were. We had a section that was specifically about how that plays into workplace boundaries and kind of what happens if you meet someone you want to date in the workplace and why is that not appropriate for those settings and all of those pieces. We do lots and lots of role playing and kind of the mock IEP meetings, disability disclosure training, but we do a lot of those on one-on-one basis so that we can really craft it to each youth's needs, not in our group settings.
I love that. I love that. I have a couple of follow-up questions, if you'll indulge me.
Absolutely.
Great. One of them is some of this, are you able to bring in peers? Are you able to bring in youth or young adults with disabilities to be mentors or models in this? Or are you relying on staff who may or may not have disabilities?
So our main youth staff do both have disabilities, myself and one other staff member as well. And then we do utilize peers as much as possible. The only time that we really don't bring in peers is those one-on-one, because those sometimes have like specific behavior plans or things about their disability that they might not want their peers to be aware of. But any other chance that we can to utilize peers, we bring them in. We actually have a peer right now who is about to age out of our youth program, and he is going to step into a mentor role where he's then going to be a volunteer and come in weekly to help us teach class so that one of our facilitators will be a peer themselves.
Oh man, I love that. And that's a perfect example of how y'all with a relatively small staff are able to take a young person with a disability, they're using your services, and then you're finding a way to give opportunities and avenues for them to develop and then actually help strengthen your services. That's so cool. I do have one more question about this really cool program. Are y'all using Part C funding, or were you able to find any sort of community funding or grants or any sort of partners to help with the monetary side of that?
So I'm probably not the person to speak on all of that. The funding is a little bit outside of my area. However, I believe the answer is all of the above. We try to utilize as much as we can with grants and partners, like DVR is a big one. If it's anything job related and we can partner with DVR, then we want to and we try to. But otherwise, I think it's, and I'll let my managers be the ones to speak on that piece, but I believe it's a little bit of everything. Just what can we do to get the funding here for this program?
I love it. Thank you so much. Um, there's some awesome comments in the chat too that I want to read, but open forum if anyone else wants to talk about a very cool program they have. Okay, I'm going to read some of the comments in the chat. But if anyone thinks of something while I go through this, please. Or if there's anything to add from the chat, if there's some extra context to give, please jump in. So Janine said that for empowerment, this program is designed to help individuals develop self-esteem in order to build personal empowerment. Materials and activities will offer practice and self-awareness through examining personal behavior, as well as the behavior of others. Participants will begin to recognize what healthy relationships look like. They also learn to make good decisions and set clear goals. That's great. I mean, that's really tied to the mission of a CIL, absolutely. But you can also see how these skills are going to be essential for effective pre-employment transition programs too. Especially when thinking about appropriate relationships in the workplace. Yeah, wonderful. Nikki mentioned that they have a hybrid pre-ETS program. They use a workbook with lessons and the exercises and self-assessments, but you tailor what's covered based on the interest and needs of each student. One feature I enjoy teaching is learning the differences in passive, assertive, and aggressive communication styles, because we get to talk about our favorite ice cream. Oh man, Nikki, I'm sorry, I might have to put you on the spot because I also love to talk about ice cream. Severely lactose intolerant, but man, do I love ice cream. Can you tell me how that sort of plays into the specific activity you're thinking of? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and it might be easier to throw some more in the chat, but I'd love to hear it. I also love that you're taking an established curriculum, so you know it's effective. You're not having to build something from the ground up, but you're still able to keep those tent poles of making sure things are individualized and accessible, because that's going to be one of the strengths of a CIL, and that's one of those fundamental parts of making sure we have effective pre-employment transition programs. Just for fun, can people put in their favorite ice cream flavor now that ice cream's on my mind? And then I'll tell you the correct answer, my favorite flavor. Ice cream people. Oh, Janine, you've got some great stuff. I love it. Janine, you're talking about the virtual job shadowing program, designed to assist individuals in making career choices. Virtual Job Shadow uses career pathway structure to help narrow career choices so that participants can decide which pathway to pursue for their career. Pathways organize many different jobs and careers into categories that share similar areas of interests. These categories are broken down further into career clusters, which are groups of actual jobs within each area. Pathways can then be further investigated using the Virtual Job Shadow website. Discussions, videos, and activities in the program help participants make the best choices for their future career. Y'all, I remember years ago when we would just sit somebody down and we'd help them go through that OSIS survey. They had like two versions, short version and extended version. That gave some great data, but it was not that interactive. So it's great to see that there are some other programs. Janine also mentioned the Smart Money program, designed to help participants understand the concepts related to basic individual finances, including earning minimum wage, paying taxes, gross versus net pay, managing monthly bills, credit card debt, paying and earning interest, banks versus credit unions, and bankruptcy laws. That is very comprehensive and so essential. I know y'all, financial knowledge is a key part of that work readiness pre-ETS curriculum, and it is also something that youth with disabilities tend to get a very minimal access to. And also a lot of times youth with disabilities because of maybe the classroom environment they have or the style of parenting that they're exposed to, they don't get a lot of the same opportunities to earn money and, more importantly, to make mistakes with money when they are in that safe space of school. And so we find that we really have to find ways to go out of our way and make sure we're giving that financial literacy information to youth with disabilities. So it's great that you're able to find a program that works. We also know that these programs, and I'm willing to bet, Jenny, and you've had to do the work too, of making this accessible, because any money management program that I've been a part of or seen, whether it's a youth curriculum or whether it's something that I'm trying to do to help myself, it's going to take me a long time to figure out what in the world they're saying. I don't speak money. It's not my first language. It takes a lot for me to understand the jargon, and you show me more than 3 numbers on a screen and my brain shuts down, right? So when we're working with youth with different support needs who have different understandings about money, a lot of times even just kind of understanding the concept of money is a challenge for youth with disabilities. So I know y'all have had to do the work of making that accessible. I won't hold y'all in suspense. Morgan, you got the correct answer right off the bat. It's coffee. Coffee is the best ice cream flavor. I see some good ones though. Cookie dough, chocolate, cookies and cream. Great. Oh. Do we have any mint chocolate chip people? I don't understand. I can't do mint with my chocolate. I can't do mint with any of my food. Like mint jelly with the lamb, I can't do it. Mint belongs in toothpaste. Call me out if you want. Oh, Nikki, thank you for adding that extra context. Communication styles are important because a lot of students are scared of being accused of being problematic when they speak assertively, and learning emotional regulation between those 3 communication styles. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, y'all have some great flavors in here too. Michigan pothole. Oh, can't wait. Can't wait. Oh, yes, I knew there were going to be some mint chocolate chip people. I get it. Donna, you're with me. I get it. Oh, Donna and Tessa. Okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Y'all have really amazing programs. I'm also going to give y'all some time during a smaller breakout session to talk about your programs, because these are really CILs kind of have to do the work, right? Y'all are not really following, it's not like there's an easy blueprint for y'all to just plug yourself into. Depending on where you are, what your staffing is, what your budget is, and what the need of the community is, you're all having to build up a lot of these services from the ground up. So I really want to make sure that y'all can connect to each other and share resources and learn from like Able South Carolina's successes and failures. Okay. There were a lot of great stuff. Is there anyone who wants to brag on themselves for a very cool program, even if it's not off the ground yet, even if it's more of an idea or you're trying to figure out how to do it, before we move on to Able South Carolina?
I've got something really quickly. It's just pretty brief. This is Helena. Yeah, so VCIL, so one of the CILs that I work at as a peer advocate, in our youth transitions program that we have, sometimes some of the peer advocate counselors will go either around to schools or have virtual presentations for students around my state in Vermont, and give presentations on like basic ADA, their rights as a student with a disability moving within high school, then moving out into the real world or next steps, higher education. So helping them understand their rights as an individual with a disability, and helping them out basically with learning how to like self-advocate for themselves, be their own advocate, know their rights, as well as understanding what the independent living movement is, and Nothing About Us Without Us, like all of those, the really crucial, just the really crucial information and foundational skills you need to learn how to advocate. They need for advocacy for later on in life. So it's a pretty cool program that we got here through the CILs. I enjoy participating in it.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
And I think you talked about another great strength of CILs is that we generally have a much deeper understanding of the history of disability advocacy, and being able to tap into that and kind of harness that power and channel that into why young people and adults need to develop these self-advocacy skills, because it's still an uphill climb in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
That's great. Oh man. Nikki did mention I'd love to have the opportunity to do informational interviews between students and professionals with disabilities, so they don't feel relegated to retail or maintenance work. Yeah, is it the 5 Fs, the 4 Fs? But yeah, there's really common jobs that a lot of times youth with disabilities end up in. We're lucky enough to be able to find a few different opportunities to host leadership panels or to have guest speakers. So we're able to get professionals from the community who are people with disabilities to come and talk about how they were able to overcome those barriers to leadership and end up in their positions. So highly encourage you. There is a way to conduct those interviews, and I'm happy to talk either in this space or more offline on how to get something like that started. Yeah. All right. This is wonderful. This is not your only time to speak, but anyone else have some cool things that I saw in your results or that I have not seen that you want to talk about? Okay. All right. If something comes to mind, interrupt me. So let's talk about best practices. And y'all can see a lot of the common threads between the programs that were mentioned, the programs that I will mention, and sort of how we talked about the structure of that triangle of pre-ETS delivery between those partners. Y'all are going to be able to see some of these tent poles that really make pre-ETS programming accessible and impactful. On the screen is also a picture of myself when I was younger and thinner at a youth leadership forum, speaking to a young man. I think in that point we were helping create an individualized goal plan. Okay. When we think about ideal pre-ETS programming, the first one shouldn't be a shock at all. We want to make sure that it is accessible, right? We want to make sure that no matter what a person's support needs are, no matter how a person's disability might affect them, that all of our programming is going to be equally accessible, which is a big task sometimes, especially if we're adapting a curriculum. That can be really tough. Or working with community partners. We have to do a lot of community partner education. We want to make sure that this programming is made for everyone. So this is going to be being aware of people's cultural backgrounds, being aware of their socioeconomic status, being aware of whatever knowledge that they're coming into these programming with, or whatever knowledge they're not coming into the programming with. And we want to make sure that there's no sort of biases hidden in the programming that we are creating or buying. We want to make sure that pre-ETS programming is aligned with UDL. Did I ask you all last time how familiar you are with Universal Design for Learning? Maybe? Quick thumbs up if you've heard of UDL or if you're pretty familiar with it. I can also see some of y'all, so I don't know how many thumbs are up. I don't know why I asked that. I can only see like the top row of y'all. Okay. Couple of y'all might not. So we'll be able to talk about that. And then we want to make sure that all of our Pre-ETS programming is based in principles of self-advocacy, right? Self-advocacy needs to be the key and the cornerstone of all of the Pre-ETS programming. Even though self-advocacy is its own Pre-ETS, we want to see that same thread throughout all of the programs we're using. Okay, so when I talk about accessibility, and I know a lot of us are absolute experts on accessibility, but just to be clear, when I talk about accessibility, I kind of follow a checklist of 3 main tenets, right? Making sure things are perceivable, making sure they're operable, and making sure that they are understandable. So can it be perceived? If it's text, is the text readable? Is it a size that's going to be readable? Is it a font that's going to be readable? If I'm showing a video, am I showing captions? Are the captions auto-generated or are they specifically made? Am I using fonts that are easy to read? Do I have alt text on images? Am I showing videos that have audio descriptions of what's on the screen? If I'm showing text, am I also showing icons next to it? Am I using an easy read format? Am I using a plain language format, right? Am I really following these tenets of accessibility when it comes to perceivable information that I'm showing? And is that throughout all of the programs that we have? So not only the content that we are creating to share, but if we're buying a packaged curriculum, are we adapting that to make sure it's fitting these models? Another great opportunity, if y'all are working with content that you're buying, we've actually had success in responding to certain companies that try to sell us curriculum and letting them know that their content is falling short accessibility wise, and that we can actually offer some assistance in developing that content in an accessible manner, which has sometimes led to fee-for-service opportunities that can support some of these Pre-ETS programs. Is it operable? So if I'm giving someone a resource, is it a website that someone can easily navigate if they're using, say, a Big Mac or some sort of adaptive computer, right? Is it compatible with a screen reader? Am I giving people multimedia options? Am I showing things in just one format, right? If I'm giving someone an independent resource or I'm asking them to go research something, go to this website, read this book, have I also checked that that is going to be something they can physically manipulate, and can they understand that? And then, of course, understandable. So I kind of already talked about that plain language. If we're giving instructions, are they clear? Are they repeated? Are they avoiding jargon? Are they using complex language? Are they using turns of phrases? Are they using portmanteaus? Are they using similes or metaphors, right? Some of these very small barriers that we don't really think of, that are very natural in a lot of our language or instructions. Are we taking that extra step to remove it, to make sure that it's understandable? And is content logically organized, right? If we're providing a bunch of information, are we providing it in a way that's going to look the same throughout, right? Or are we asking people to relearn the format of our content every single time we give them a new resource? Okay. When we are thinking about universal design for learning, we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all learners, right? We want to make sure that the material, the content, the lessons, the activities, the workshops that we're setting up, the partnerships that we're creating, where we're asking people to go into new settings or a self-paced module, whatever it may be, can they be adjusted to fit different types, right? Is everything going to be one-on-one? Do we have opportunities for peer work? Do we have opportunities for large group work? Do we have opportunities for virtual work, right? Depending on where people are in the community and what their needs are. We need to make sure that all of our lessons and our content and our activities, are we giving people, and this is kind of in the wrong order, so I'm going to switch it around. Are we, first of all, creating buy-in in a specific way, right? Are we using more than one method to encourage student involvement? Are we giving students some kind of autonomy, some sort of immediate buy-in? Are we showing them why content is accessible? Why content is relevant, right? I don't know if any of y'all have worked with students who can sit there and absorb material and be like, yeah, this doesn't really apply to me now, but I bet in a few years' time, this is really going to be relevant. Has anybody had that experience? Because I've been doing this for a minute and I've yet to have that experience, right? Students, young people, young professionals, they don't really want to spend time on content that's not going to be immediate relevant, right? So how do we show that immediate relevance to their lives, even if the end goal is to build up a skill that's going to be used later on? So how do we create that buy-in, right? Are we giving more than one method for that? When we're presenting information, are we using more than one modality? Is it just me talking? Is it me talking with a slideshow? Is it me talking with a slideshow with pictures? Have I given out video resources? Have I given out tactile resources that people can manipulate at their own pace? Am I doing all of these things at once to make sure I'm appealing to every type of learner there is? And then when we are asking people to show us what they've learned, right? When we're checking that to see if that content is there, when we're checking for understanding, when we're trying to reach that point of synthesis, right? Are we giving people more than one way to show that information, to show that they have learned that information? Are we just asking them to fill out a multiple choice test? Are we just asking them to write an essay, right? Are we giving them kinesthetic opportunities to be able to show? Can they point to things? Can they move manipulatives? So making sure that we are creating buy-in in different ways, showing content and information in different ways, and we're allowing them to show understanding in different ways. This is a really great website. And Megan, I did not tell you this beforehand, so I apologize. But if there is a way to throw this in the chat at some point, this is a really great website to use, udlguidelines.cast.org. And for all of my data people, if you ever run into somebody who wants to know what the science behind UDL is, this website will give you direct links to more research than I could ever come through. A couple of great things in the chat too. Yes, goal setting and identifying values is how you foster that buy-in. Yeah, you got to find out what's important to them right now. Oh no, can't hear the meeting. Am I still coming through? I hope. When providing pre-ed services to our students over the years, we've had to modify lessons to match the learning levels of students in the classrooms, right? Presenting a variation of slides, hands-on activities, open forums. Oh, very well said, Crystal. Yeah. You do want to make sure, especially if even if you're buying or creating content, right? A lot of times you're not going to know the youth you work with until it's the day you're supposed to start working with them. So are you able to present material that's going to be applicable to maybe learners at various stages of learning, right? Not an easy task. Okay. Oh my goodness. Great. And then when we think about self-advocacy for best practices, self-advocacy should be foundational in all of our pre-ETS programming. We know that when students learn how to advocate for themselves, they're really engaging that central part of the IL philosophy, which is the mission of all CILs, but also I would argue key to effective pre-ETS services. We really have to make sure that students can understand the principles of self-advocacy, and we want students to feel confident in the independent living movement's foundational ideologies, because that's what's going to allow them to be the center of their own pre-ETS, right? We know that if a student is just sort of a passive participant in those pre-ETS, they might even be able to get to the point of getting a job. Are they keeping a job? Are they progressing in it? Is that job allowing them to live the life they want to live? So, let's talk about Able South Carolina programs. Just a quick side note about Able South Carolina. We're a disability-led organization seeking transformational changes in systems, communities, and individuals. We're pretty old in South Carolina. We're the oldest and largest federally recognized disability-led organization in the state. And more than 3/4 of our staff, I think closer to 80 or 90% of our staff are people with disabilities, as are over half of our board of directors. I feel like y'all have said that's also a representative of your CILs, which is wonderful. And of course, anyone who works at a CIL, we don't just learn about disability advocacy, we live this every day, right? So how do we provide those pre-ETS? So we have found the best method is sort of a 4-week window of curricula. All of our curricula right now is still focused in that self-advocacy pre-ETS, but we include a lot of content from other pre-ETS. So even if our curriculum is self-advocacy, we might introduce some concepts of post-secondary exploration or work readiness skills. They're all 45-minute lessons. That's the sweet spot that we have found. If we're going under 45 minutes, then we're having to cram stuff in a really short time that really hinders our accessibility. If we go over 45 minutes, we're starting to lose people's attention. So 45 minutes is what we found to be the really sweet spot. All of our lessons follow a very similar pattern. So we do an introduction activity. That's our warm-up, that's our icebreaker. Sometimes that's going to introduce a concept that's going to be tied to the main point of content. Sometimes it's really more about modeling an activity that we're going to be using later. But that warm-up is always kind of fun, it's high energy, it's low skill, and it sort of creates that buy-in. We usually do, I wouldn't even say 20 minutes content instruction, really 15 or less. After that warm-up is when we kind of provide them with the content. We're showing different materials. We're speaking, but we're using icons, we're using PowerPoints, we're writing on the board, we're doing everything we can to give the information. And then the majority of the time is going to be spent on that main activity. So that's going to be a way for them to either self-explore the content or more likely show that they have absorbed the content in some way or reach closer to that point of synthesis to show genuine learning. And of course, all of our activities are based around principles of UDL. These 45-minute once a week for 4-week sessions. Sometimes we'll also do one-day workshops where it's just these 4 sessions back to back. We also offer, of course, peer mentoring and individual goal setting lessons, which of course all of y'all do as well. We provide this information in person and virtual, so we can do both formats. We can also do a hybrid option. We've definitely found that most people prefer in person. We have worked hard to make our virtual curriculum as good as our in-person curriculum, as well as accessible. But we've found that a couple of things are non-negotiable for us. So if we're providing that virtual curriculum, people have to have one-to-one technology. You can't just put us as a big face on a screen on a projector in a classroom. We have to make sure that each person has their own laptop and that it's an accessible laptop that's going to work for them and allow them to type or speak or react in some way. We also do progress monitoring. This is how we help with quality assurance. This is how we test the validity of our lessons. All of our progress monitoring is tied back to the objective of the lesson. So even if the content is tweaked, even if the activity might be different than what's written in the lesson plan, because that's what's going to work best for that particular group, we always make sure we're sticking to the objective of the lesson and that is what's measured in the progress monitoring. And then we also say that our instructors are almost always going to be youth with disabilities, right? And these are going to allow us to make sure that we have young people who are young professionals, so they have those basic skills, but they're also able to make these really distinct, these clear, these quick sense of rapport with youth with disabilities, because I don't fit in that category anymore. I'm officially an old man now. I have been called boomer in a classroom before, which hurts. But I know that to have effective pre-ETS, we really need to be relying on younger staff to do this. So that's why you guys get to talk to me here in the professional side of things. The objectives are always static, but like I said, sometimes our method of teaching is going to change. This allows sort of the curriculum to be adjusted to fit a specific school students or a specific classroom students or whatever their support needs might be, right? The same lesson we run in one classroom that has really high support needs is going to look different with a different activity than someone who doesn't have as high support needs, right? But we want to make sure engagement is good across the board. We really encourage our staff to be able to think creatively, try new things, be able to provide a unique experience while we're still making sure that they are using these fundamental principles so that we're ensuring validity. Okay. Yeah, this is a quick overview of our self-advocacy, disabilities, and accommodations curriculum. This is really just our our lessons. We talk about knowing yourself. We talk about disability history, empowerment, and awareness. We talk about supported decision-making. And then we talk about accommodations. We've actually moved some of our communication stuff and some of our disability history stuff to another curriculum to shrink this down to 4 weeks. So our curriculum is kind of constantly evolving when we're getting feedback from students and teachers about what's working best in the classroom. This is always the one that we ask people to start with because people need to know that when we come in the classroom, we're going to use the word disability. We're going to talk about disability. No matter what our pre-ETS goals are, we're going to talk about disability, and it's all going to be self-advocacy focused. Laura, to answer your question, a lot of our services are taught in class. So we're able to create partnerships with schools and go into classrooms. But we also have virtual spaces. We also sometimes teach at our office in the meeting space we have. Sometimes we're able to go out to VR offices where they have work training centers. Sometimes we have similar lessons in community spaces. If we're hosting a community event, we have sort of a semi-structured lesson there. And then we have summer programs that are hosted off-site, but they're still going to have a structured setting for us to use, like a college campus, or we went to Unity Park here in Greenville recently and had a series of sessions, the library. So we've been able to teach in multiple settings, but I would say a majority of our traditional pre-ETS classes takes place in the classroom. Okay. Trying to keep an eye on time too, because we're going to break out. Quick history. We started way back in 2016. We were able to contract with our Commission for the Blind, because in this state, vocational rehabilitation and Commission for the Blind services are separate. We just started with a very small contract where we focused on providing services to youth with visual disabilities. Had one curriculum, one staff member who was part-time, who was tracking our data in a Microsoft Word table. I want you to pick up what I said. A Microsoft Word table. Wasn't even using Excel at that time. So we started, I say that to say we started very, very small. By 2019, we'd been able to secure a contract with our vocational rehabilitation department, and that allowed us a really, really great expansion. By 2024, we had more than 10 staff members. We were serving 30 schools. That's about 1,200 students. We had 8 different curricula. We had plans for expansion. All of our curriculum had virtual and hybrid options. So I throw up this timeline just to illustrate that we started very small. We still always stuck with these principles that I've talked about, but we've slowly been able to grow to a point that we're able to impact a lot of youth as part of this essential part of pre-ETS. I also want to be real with you guys, and this is slightly different from if you were a part of that last cohort too. Things change. We have had a reduction in staff recently. We've had some of our contractors change and reduce capacity. We are serving. We're serving 15 schools. This says 300. I'm sorry, it's a typo. We're still serving quite a few students. We do have 9 curricula, and we've really started focusing on our fee-for-service training, on packaging and selling our curriculum, on working closer with community partners, on leveraging different funding sources. Our peer mentoring program, which is called Equip, has expanded into after-school clubs. We're able to use some of our funding to actually pay these Equip Club offices. So these are youth with disabilities who are attending the club, who are who are group elected leaders, who get specialized training from us and then go back into the club and teach the rest of their youth. There's been consistent expansion with that program. We have our summer advocacy workshop. So that's our youth leadership forum, if you're familiar with YLF in your state. We're the main collaborator and program coordinator for our state's youth leadership forum. We have a growing roster of community partners. We used to have about 5 partners who helped us with this. I think we're up to 20 community partners just because they've reached across and help us with different programs. Constantly increasing application numbers. We only have 30 youth that can attend. We have well over 100 applicants every year now. And then we're having community partners help us fund that as well. And then we've also focused on professional development. I talked about how CILs can be a big part of offering professional development to schools, to VR, to community partners, to give that disability perspective. Okay. Whew. That was a bit. I think we're got about 30 minutes. Is that right, Megan? I'm gonna say that's right.
Yes, that's correct. 27 to be exact.
Great. Okay. How are we feeling? I feel like I've been talking a lot. Let me get some thumbs up. Who's still awake? Who's still with me? For me, this is about cup of coffee number 3 or 4. This is usually when I have to get some more info or more energy, right? Okay. So here's what I'd like to do. And this is where I'm gonna rely on y'all. We had some great participation earlier. You guys have some really great information. I know that a lot of times when we have the webinars, it's kind of like we have it as we're doing other things, we're catching up on other tasks. Webinars have definitely been my podcast if I am working from home and walking the dogs or something. So if that's the space you're in, I understand that. But if you are able to pause and kind of jump in and participate, obviously you don't have to have your camera on. If you prefer to contribute through the chat instead of open mic, that's totally fine. I am gonna ask for some breakout rooms. So, and I'm gonna rely on the brilliance of Megan to manipulate how the breakout rooms work here. But we're gonna go into 2 breakout rooms. And by that, I mean, some of y'all will go into 1 breakout room, some of y'all will hang out here with me. And I'd like us to divide by programs that have been around for about 2 years or more, because some of y'all have a lot of really great experience. You're at sort of a different point in your program development. Some of y'all are sort of still building that. And so we're gonna split into 2 rooms, but both rooms I'm gonna give the same task to. I would like y'all to share amongst each other, what does a successful youth program look like? What are the 3 barriers you see? And what are some solutions you've tried or you are considering? I think you're gonna find that y'all have a lot of common barriers, but you might be trying different solutions. So I want us to really benefit from this beautiful organic brain trust that we built. So Megan, I think the easiest way to do it is if I think this is what we said, the ones that were 2 years or older are in one group. And then if you're able to hop over there and just get them started, and I will hang
Yeah.
out here.
So, yep, so we opened up a breakout room, and I think you should be able to see that. But what we'll do is we'll have the developing program. So people who have less than 2 years of experience with their program offering pre-ETS are going to join the breakout room. And then if you have more than 2 years, you stay here. And then I'll join the folks in the developing programs breakout room. But you should be able to navigate to the room by going to the breakout room button at the bottom of your Zoom window, and there should be a join button. So it looks like I think I'm seeing a couple of folks join over there, and then I will bring the questions with me, and Amber, I'm not sure. Do you want to try again? And also, if anyone has trouble getting to said breakout room, there's no problem if you stay in the main room. I think you'll still be part of a really valuable discussion. So, Troy, I'm going to head over to the breakout room, and then I'll pop back in if there's any technical things, and Rebecca will be in this main room if you need help as well.
Jackie had to leave, but she could probably get on her phone. I'm not sure. She's much better at this subject than I am. She ran the youth programs forever at Ames, so I wouldn't even know how to answer the questions, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. If they have the capacity to jump in, that's great. If
Yeah,
you would
I
just rather be a listener, that's also
just
totally fine.
texted her. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no stress. Absolutely.
All right. And I just dropped in the chat just kind of like a note about if you are not finding the breakout room, you're going to click the breakout room button at the bottom of your Zoom window, and then it should give you an option to join the developing programs less than 2 years room. So I'm going to hop over there, Troy, just to help get discussion started, and then either text me or private message me if you need anything.
Wonderful. And y'all, no stress. This is going to be less than 10 minutes. So we got this. Thank you, Megan. Okay. Who is with me? I see a few people.
Unmute.
Hi.
I was wondering if somebody could help me.
Yeah.
I am not hearing the speaker at all. I hear everybody else. I have
Is there a chat?
I just can't hear.
Is there a chat window?
Well, there is, it disappears very quickly, but
Are you is it Zoom?
yeah,
Because there should be a button that says open chat window.
open chat window. Well, there's a chat here.
Yeah, put that.
Okay. Comes up with the breakout thing. I can see my monitor monitoring
And-
my voice. So that's not the problem.
Oh, and Roger, you probably can't hear me.
Um,
Rebecca, could I ask you to send a private
Well, there's a
message?
chat I can type
I
in.
will try to send them a message. Are they
Yeah.
in this particular breakout room?
Someone else
Yeah,
sharing.
they're still in the main room. And then as they're
And
navigating
who-
that, would you
what's-
mind just muting them?
I'm gonna try to see if I can. I don't even,
Let's see.
let me see what I can do.
Meeting group chat.
Sorry, y'all. Thanks for
Message.
hanging on.
I appreciate it, but I'll take care of this.
I'm probably gonna mess up names, which I hate messing up names. Okay, Anna Marie, Trinell.
Okay, we're all good to go now.
Great.
And Anna Marie is our captioner.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see it says
So,
captain right there.
Trinell-
Thanks, Anna Marie. Go ahead.
So Trinell is here also. Yeah, I heard you say my name.
Hi.
Hi.
Chris, Heather, Janine, Janai. Awesome. We've got some great people. Wonderful. So just to check, y'all are sort of in the earlier stages of your pre-ETS programming. Is that right? Thumbs up? No.
This is Chanel.
He said the exact opposite.
It's the opposite. I thought that
Great.
these were the established programs, so that's why I stayed in this breakout session.
Perfect. You did it right. I said it wrong. You're great.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That's me. That's me.
And Troy, just for housekeeping purposes, try to announce whether you want people to come off the mic or just give a thumbs up video wise, because they're just gonna talk over each other.
Perfect.
Otherwise, it might be hard
Thank
for
you.
people to hear.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Okay. I think the easiest thing to do is if I can get, and I won't call names, but if we can just have one person sort of start and come off mic or put in the chat. How do you know your programs are successful? What's a measure of success for y'all?
So I'm gonna repeat you, Troy, because people said they thought your mic was too low. So the question that Troy asked was, how do you know that your program is successful? Is that correct? And if you all want to like slowly come off the mic and then just, speak and say your name, please, before you speak, so we can know how to address you. Thank you.
Okay, this is Chris Murray. We do surveys at the end, but I can't really say that we have a great measurement of whether or not that is something we need to probably work on. So yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Nikki, I see your hand.
Sure.
Yes, Nikki.
So, can you all hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay. So, similar to Chris, we just, basically ask for an evaluation from the student. Sometimes they volunteer it before we ask, and though it's not quantitative or qualitative as far as like reporting for grant funds and things like that, for us getting that personal feedback from the students, is still important to us when they can articulate how they can apply what they've been learning already in their present lives.
Very well said. Yeah. I also see in the chat folks returning to a session. That's a great measure of success if you've got people coming back. And then if it spreads by word of mouth. Oh, that's a really good one, Janine. Yeah, absolutely. Being a continuous referral site. Yes. So it sounds like a lot of y'all are using or you're starting to use a survey, which I highly encourage. One, just for getting your own feedback so that you can continue to improve lessons. But also, Trinell, I think just like you said, when you're applying for grants, it's really great to have numbers. People love numbers. So if you're able to point to, we've had X number of participants across X sessions, and they've reported an increase in this skill by 70% or whatever, 70% of participants were able to report that increase. You're able to make a really accessible survey for youth to use that allows for that. I'll say we also use that data to cross-reference it with disability. Some of our surveys are not anonymous, which we're upfront about. We're able to cross-reference that with student data to see like, oh, youth in 9th grade really benefit from this lesson, but youth in 12th grade don't. Or youth who have reported that their disability is autism tend to really like this lesson, whereas youth with visual disabilities, they've all failed this progress monitoring. So that data can be really useful. But yeah, I would say people coming back, being a referral site, spreading by word of mouth, people just being excited to be there. Those are all successes. Jamie, you also picked up on a really big one because when it comes to pre-ETS, the big thing is, are you finishing pre-ETS and do you have a job, right? Are you able to go closer to that goal of independent living, whatever that looks like to you? Are able to lead that self-directed life supported by work? That can be really difficult if you're not keeping long-term track of the youth that you're working with. That is something that we're still navigating in some way. We're lucky enough that we've been around enough, and we have a big portion of youth who work with us in multiple ways. We're able to keep track of that. But honestly, considering the impact of students and sometimes our limited time with students, we're actually working in different coalitions to see if we can get that final piece of data that shows once they've left us, if they've moved to another service, do they eventually reach that goal of employment? But yeah, those are all wonderful marks of success. What about barriers? What kind of barriers are y'all seeing?
Hi, this is Trinell from Disability Network West Michigan. I think one of our main barriers are just transportation with our youth. If we don't hold the sessions at the facilities where it's easily accessible to them, and if they have to come to us, it makes it harder because of the transportation issue and the way that our public transit is set up here in Muskegon County. So I think that's the greatest barrier that we face besides funding, like with most of us probably.
Thank you so much for now. I see Nikki's hand.
So, I would say the biggest barrier that we face is combating the internalized ableism from the parents.
I mean, Janelle, I was gonna say I think everybody is working through transportation, but some of y'all might be lucky enough to live in a place where you've got pretty good public transportation. I think everyone is definitely having to educate parents on that. Yeah, but I'm willing to bet everybody probably is also fighting transportation in some way, right? Any other? I think those are beautiful examples. Any other big barriers before we talk about solutions or attempted solutions?
So this is Chris Marie again. I think the barrier again about following them and seeing if it, so we work 30 weeks with our students, and sometimes we'll work with them. So we go into the schools. And so sometimes they'll be, sometimes they're leaving, but sometimes we don't know then whatever, did it make a difference? You can't really find that, whether they ended up being employed or not, like you were talking about. So that is one tracking future.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So these are all really good. The internalized ableism. What are some things that y'all have tried to educate both parents and the youth that we're working with to sort of address that? Because that really has to be addressed before we can provide those effective pre-ETS. I can kick us off because one of the things that we've had to do is parent trainings. Um, we work with a couple of other agencies who are more parent focused, like we have one called Family Connections here. And we actually train a lot of their staff. They go through professional development with us to really combat that internalized ableism. And we also advocate for youth to have difficult conversations with their parents. One of the easiest things we do, though, because that's a big one to work up to, one of the easiest things we do, though, is we are very, very, very transparent about the intent of our programming, right? We specifically use the word disability. We use it repeatedly. We specifically talk about barriers that youth run into at schools, at work, and in the community. And we really emphasize the importance of holding youth to high standards, right? A lot of times a family unit might celebrate a small victory, which is wonderful. But we talk a lot about the concept of inspiration porn, of, you know, people having a view that people with disabilities, if they accomplish anything, oh, it's a miracle, oh, it's wonderful, right? We really push back against that in a lot of public statements and a lot of conversations with parents. A lot of because our philosophy is just so in your face, it really forces parents to question themselves. I can do that in really small, short conversations with parents as they're dropping off somebody, or we're talking on the phone, just challenging that notion, and you can kind of hear them start to, you know, it doesn't happen quickly and it doesn't happen all at once, but they start to rethink, and then they hear it from their youth, and that's when it really sets in. Is there any other small things that y'all have tried?
And Troy, just to let you know, they're gonna probably come back from there to break out in 1 minute.
Awesome.
So real quick, since I was the one that presented that as a barrier, yes, we do have a very strong partnership with a parent-led nonprofit that works with the parents on getting the accommodations and IEPs and things like that. So we usually recommend that the parents, you know, talk about disability pride and how to advocate, including letting their students speak by working with them, because I think parents listen to other parents better sometimes. But we also, in part of like that communication module that I was talking about earlier, with that passive and assertive communication lesson, we talk about how, you know, it's probably easier for students to navigate conversations passively with their parents, again, because they don't want to be seen as being problematic, disrespectful, things like that. So that's kind of where we work that in.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyone have any brilliant takes on transportation? I will say one of the things that we've done is we're able to work closely with vocational rehabilitation, who has access to transportation resources. So we try and make sure that they're linked that way, because they can provide direct funding for transportation to a lot of pre-ETS services. You know, I would check what the specific policies are at your local offices, but federally they can do that. And then a lot of times, transportation is kind of an opportunity because it's the first goal that the youth sets. So as youth are working with us one-on-one to set a goal, especially if it's adjacent to pre-ETS, as we talk about, okay, you don't have transportation. Let's figure out how to use public transportation. Let's look at alternatives to public transportation in your area, right? Let's talk about different ways that you can get from place to place. And we set them up with a young person who has had to overcome those barriers themselves. I have not found a silver bullet to that, but those are a couple of ways we've addressed it. All right.
Troy, sorry if I'm coming in at a bad time. Just wanted to say that we just got ready to close the breakout room. So our folks that were in the breakout should be coming back any minute now, and trickling in. And then one thing to flag is we didn't get to really finish up this discussion, but a few folks had mentioned that it would be really helpful to kind of hear, even through chat, any challenges or barriers that people are running into, because we didn't get to dig into that too much. So yeah, that's my report out from our session, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Megan, and thank you, Rebecca, for helping us here. And Megan, I am so sorry. I was trying to hop between the two, but I think you just ended up piloting that whole group, so I do appreciate that. I will say this is a perfect setup, because the next session that we're going to do is focusing all on barriers and solutions, right? So I've got a lot of sort of predetermined barriers and solutions that we've tried, and those solutions we've tried that didn't work. That's going to be a big focus of this last session. So I really, really encourage y'all. There's going to be a survey at the end of this session to please, those questions that we didn't get to, or the questions you want to hear reiterated or fleshed out, use that survey so that we can make sure we tackle those in the next session. Just as a quick recap, some of the things we talked about were fighting that internalized ableism that happens with a lot of youth and parents we work with, trying to find transportation, because public transportation is very difficult almost anywhere you live, and then being able to track youth long term in order to see if they are in fact reaching their goals, because a lot of times we don't have access to them but for a short window. So I'm going to put kind of a recap of what we talked about and some more thoughts in the next presentation so that both groups get to see it, and they can also correct me if I miss anything. We're coming up close to time. I'm going to use just a minute. You know, I think we talked a little bit about this, so I'm not going to go over a lot of these successes. I will say that we've been able to serve a lot of youth. We serve between 100 and 200 students a month, which doesn't include summer programming. We know success because we know that people have asked us back, which is what we talked about earlier. So we're able to see youth again and again. And then a lot of our impact we can see qualitatively, so we can hear these individual success stories. Youth are buying cars, they're changing their educational tracks, they're advocating in their IEP, they're living independently, they're finding employment. That's how we know these pre-ETS services are working, and that all three of those partners are doing what they should do. We also have some quantitative data, which I might try and sneak in on the next presentation, because I know some of y'all are probably more quantitative fans. I am going to, Megan, I'm going to go off script a little bit, and I'm going to hold off on some of the barriers and solutions, because I think that's going to fit nicely in next week's too, and I think we're closer to time too. So I'm going to, do a super quick recap. We talked about best practices, how they need to be accessible, they need to be appropriate, focus on universal design, and focus on self-advocacy. You've got to find a format for program that works for you. We allow a lot of flexibility, but we stay static with our objectives. And you have to know that services are going to evolve and change and grow. The more you can document success, both qualitative, so those meaningful stories you get, and quantitative, the number of people, the progress that they report on standardized surveys, that's going to know that you're doing the right thing, and it also helps you when you apply for more funding. We're going to save the barriers for next time, I think. We know that when students have access to quality pre-ETS, they have the opportunity to really become strong leaders and advocates. All right, we'll pause. We'll throw my information up on the screen as well. But Megan, I think I'm going to hand it back to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, sounds good. And I know we didn't get into the barriers details today, Troy, but I was going to say that we did send these slides out. So they might give you some ideas about what other questions you have that you want to discuss on our next session, which is really going to be all about barriers and solutions like Troy was mentioning. And I dropped the link in the chat to the forum or survey that Troy mentioned that we ask you to fill out. And I did want to call out, someone had asked how many people are participating. We have over 40 CILs participating in this community. So it's a really broad array of centers who have been a part of these discussions. And definitely submit your questions to that form so that we can have a great discussion on our next meeting on the 10th. And you want to go to the next slide, Troy? And sorry, I know we are at time, so if you do have to drop, by all means, we will see you on Thursday, July 10th at the same time in Zoom. But if you have any questions, reach out to the DTAC Gmail inbox. We will be distributing the slides, the recording from today, as well as the link to that form in our follow-up email to all of you tomorrow. And with that, I think we are ready to close out, and I just want to extend another thank you to Troy as our amazing facilitator in these sessions, and to all of you for your active participation. Rebecca, if we could just hold off on closing the Zoom for a minute, I just want to kind of close a couple things out behind the scenes, but that brings us to the end of our session, and we will see you all on July 10th.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Hold on. All right, I think we are all set. Looks like most folks have dropped off. Troy, I was gonna just double check if I had any other questions for you ahead of the next session, but I